Easy people, hope everyone's doing okay. Today we're in the village of Stamford, Middle England, and it's a very interesting place indeed. The recent survey told us that there's a population of just 20,000 people, but there is 5 medieval style churches in the village, and you know my thoughts on churches, old world power stations. So that's a rather large amount of churches for a small town of just 20,000, and that's a recent population. These churches, the official narrative tells us, go back to the 16th century. So an interesting place indeed. So let's get ready to go for a wander. This is our first church on the high street. Already see ornamentation on top there. Really interesting levels as well with the church, so we'll go over and take a closer look. Look at this, you can see the ornamentation there behind me. Really interesting. It's actually a service going on in there, so we won't be able to go in and have a closer inspection, but still, lots of ornamentation. Very interesting building. That's one of 5, and also the high street itself is really interesting. So we'll go and take a look just before we get to the next church. There's the church just behind me, and you can see the building right there, red brick chimney. So the outer stonework is not necessarily what the actual original brickwork is of these buildings, which is interesting. Now, I've just been inside the church. Huge organ in the corner. Organs being the sound healers of the organ, frequency, vibrations of the old world in the old world energy buildings. This is the entrance up to the side of the church. You can see steps leading up. Blockwork goes quite low, which tells me it's a lot lower. And if we just look over to the other side of the road, you can see lower level windows with the doors raised up, which is just more repurposing. Look at this beautiful ornamentation at the side of this church still here, and really interesting placement on the windows on the side street. And also, look at this brickwork here of a entrance of some sort, or perhaps, I'm not sure. Yeah, you can see it actually goes in. Look, there's the roof. So this would have been an entrance. So this definitely is a raised up pathway here, giving us more evidence of the mud flood event. This is us on the River Welland, where we were on the previous video for the viaducts, not actually far from the village of Stamford. You can see lots of the old world chimneys. See these here? All up on all of the old buildings. The church just there in the background, and we've got another one just in front of us, what we're going to go and take a look at. Look at this, just off of the high street. Old world red brick. Just here, just as we were walking up. Old world red brick. There's some lower level basement windows, repurposed steps up to the doorway. All of this is all along the high street, even bricked up ones there that you can see. So this is us at the second church now, as you can hear it chiming. Really interesting that it's on top of a small mound. I've spoken about before these mounds, almost just to cover up how actually low the church goes. And the buildings right at the side have lower level windows, some bricked up, repurposed doors there. Also the blue bits there that are covered up. It tells us that this definitely has lower levels, and this mound is almost a part that's added later to really repurpose the new levelling, which is just there. Just the other side of the bell tower, you can see the pipe works would have had copper iron rods in, and if you look, it runs all the way up to the top of the tower. This would be creating the magnetic energy, channeling it down From the top point, we would have had a iron antenna on, just to give a better shot. And then with the spire on top, you can imagine the antenna being there, channeling the energy all the way through these iron pipe works, magnets. Here's the third church just behind me, guys, and you can see currently going under restoration work. New stonework being applied, which, you know, just repurposing and hiding up the original works. But look, lots of lower level windows at the side. Great building there just to the side of the church. Shows a new repurposed doorway. Lower levels. Just at the back of this church we have a beautiful old red brick Tartarian building and a really interesting doorway there. As you can see, it goes a lot lower down there underneath, repurposed steps up, but a beautiful red brick, Tartarian red brick. You can see this doorway just next to it. This one's been bricked up, and same with the lower level part there. It's been covered over with stonework. Just a short distance from where we were, just want to show you. You can see these windows here, this middle window, and then these two would have been windows also, exactly the same, but just a repurposed doorway. Now we see this a lot, where the doorways on the high street that we find now in the towns and cities are not the original doorways. If you look closely, you can actually see the modern day rendering, the repurposing to come up to the new ground level. This ties in with the mud flood, the event that has happened, a cataclysm, an event that caused great destruction within the realm and caused the ground level to raise up considerably. Just at our fourth church now, really in close proximity of each other, and you can see the ornamentation on top again, much of the same. This could easily be used to harness the electromagnetic energy from the ether. Same at the front, which we'll go around and have a look. You know, this is how close we are to the other churches. There's the spire of the other one in the background. The one that we've just walked from was literally 100 yards in that distance. Some old red brick as well, just at the side of this church, but we'll go around and take a look at the front. You see it, much of the same ornamentation. Have the magnetic rods in each part, but it's the Antiquitech on top that is of points of interest. You can really see, if you look at the four spires, the battery cylinders running around each one, which would contain an iron or copper rod. We would have had a antenna on top, and this would have harnessed and produced even more energy, bringing it down in a current into the old world energy building. Wow, look at this one in the background, guys. We've got an old world copper dome with the spire, weathercock on top that we know is a repurposing, and lots of smaller ornamentation that runs round that would have been the battery cylinder. So this one is still an old world energy device intact, which is amazing to see. It's a beautiful building as well, lots of ornamentation on the top part there. I don't know if you can quite see that there, but this copper dome really is fantastic to see. Just at the entrance here, founded circa 1483, so incredibly old. As I said earlier at the start of this video, the population being just 20,000 today, buildings like this being built nearly 600 years ago. I mean, really, look at that incredible old world energy building. Just 100 meters from where we just were, you can see it in the background, and we have more, much of the same. Old world antenna, copper dome, cylinders running around the side, and just here as well. Another smaller Catholic church. Copper rooftop on there with a weathercock. Repurposing. What an incredible place. Even the cylinders here. This is all on this high street here in Stamford. Just an amazing place. Incredible. Look at that. The building there just to the side of us. We come to the residential part and lower level access that we see. Repurposed doorways. This is an incredible village, Stamford. Really encourage you to come up here and have a look for yourself. And we've got more exciting things to go and have a wander around. 50 metres from where we just were, we've got a reformed church, old world building, red Tartarian brick. It's just everywhere you look. Along this high street, this is where we are sort of at the moment. You've got two high streets, and everywhere that we go, finding more and more of the old world buildings, and the Antiquitech still here, but not being used to its original purpose. But there's more repurposed doorways up with the lower levels below. This runs all the way along here. New steps leading up to the new level. Repurposing. Check out this incredible building behind me. I can't actually get in there, the gate is locked. But look at that. Red brick chimneys on the top there. Just a beautiful old world building. Again, a church. I mean, I've lost count now of how many churches. When I read up, just being the 5 medieval ones, there's a lot more than that. There seems to be a church every 50 yards. And you know what I've said about the churches, cathedrals, they are old world energy buildings, harnessing the electromagnetic energy. Look at this here as well, we've got a bell tower. You could easily imagine iron antenna being on top of there, harnessing the ether, the electromagnetic energy. What an incredible place. Stamford School. That's a school, that one is. Wow. that's some school. I don't think it was built as a school in its original inception, that's for sure. So we've walked about 200 metres down Priory's Road to St Leonard's Priory. Now this was founded about 1100 by the monks of Durham to administer their southern properties. 2 eastern bays of the original nave are early 12th century, 3 western bays a little later. The fine west front collapsed in 1833. What a very interesting year for something to collapse, eh? It's much like the Battle of Hastings, 1066. We see these numbers that have great significance keep reoccurring, but look at this building. Look at it. Just here, on these grounds, this is energy capacitors. Now look at the side here, magnets. We have huge archway magnets. Look, incredible. Incredible. And as the placard has told us, the impressive front has already collapsed. What a blessing it would have been to see that. But look at this, guys. Is this battery in some form, that the power being generated more over there, and this being the storer with the magnets, with the magnetism in the archways? Just a thought throwing that one out there, because it was about 200 meters along the road away from all that we have just seen up there in the town center of Stamford. An incredible place, really. Look at it as well, beautiful. Everything about it screaming old world. Power stations. Down the other side you can clearly see that these steps are added much later. This potentially could have been a window and now has just been repurposed as a door. So you see this a lot when you really give attention, when you really analyze these doorways and the rendering around the doorways. You really see just how they've been added much later than the building themselves, and that is because the majority of these buildings go down, they go down a lot lower than we are led to believe. These houses, we're just walking away from the Priory Church now, and these houses along the road are the red brick. But the doors to me feel like they are repurposed doors, not the original doors that would have been to these properties. It's just the feeling I'm getting as walking along here. It'd be fantastic to know whether they've got lower levels, and sometimes people don't even realise that their properties have got these lower levels and just how far they go down. Said this bridge was erected in 1881 as the other one was destroyed by the flood in 1880. Look at the lantern on the front there, just wondering whether that's a similar one to the one we saw in Cambridge the other week, where it's cast iron because it had an antenna on top, so it could have possibly been powered by the electromagnetic energy, not needed a wire source to provide the light. But we're just wandering up the river Welland here, as we were at the viaduct the other week. Always running water close to the power stations. They were literally all just there within a couple of 100 meters, and you always find rivers close by to the old world power stations. This little placard here in the town centre. Stamford was one of the most important towns in the country at the time of the Domesday Book. As the town developed, the wealth of the wool trade supported the establishment of many of the fine medieval churches in the town, 5 of which still remain. Once, these imposing stone buildings would have been surrounded by modest timber properties. As the town prospered, all the domestic and commercial premises were rebuilt in stone. So there is telling us that this outer stonework isn't what the original buildings were made from, and I've already seen some of the original red brick underneath it and side by side with it, so it's fair to say that this was an old Tartarian town, a very important place to say the least, because to have that many power stations within close proximity of each other would have been generating a huge amount of energy, of electromagnetic energy. So this town really is an old Tartarian city. Look at this, just a short distance in the centre there. Can you see that? Can you see that? An antenna standing right there. So it states that this is the Stamford Eleanor Cross, but nothing remains. So they erected this in 2008, a graceful spire, as a reminder of it. Just wondering whether that's similar to the market cross that we have in my hometown of Leighton Buzzard, which I've done a video on. And we see market crosses in many of the old towns, the older world towns, that don't really serve a purpose, but perhaps they did. All Saints Church behind me, you can see lots of the ornamentation on top of that spire there. It would have been channeling the energy. We have all of the cylinders, capacitors running around the side of the building. So many up here on the side. Let's go and take a closer look at these ones. Look at this. You can just see even more ornamentation as well, just up there on the top. All the way. Running around the side here. I've just lost count now of how many churches that I've come across here, the old world power stations. Such an incredible structure. Really, with the huge spire as well, you see the spikes coming out, that assists the energy as it's flowing down. And as we read on the placard, that this stonework isn't the original structure itself. And even in their own words, this place is 600, 700, 800 years old and older. But potentially these buildings could have been here for thousands of years. Just there opposite you can see huge red brick furnace. So there we have, in their own words, a castle was here 1,000 years ago. Ruinous by 1340, demolished by the mid-16th century. Such a shame that we don't get to see these old world structures, but we've seen more than enough in the town of Stamford to tell us that this was a very important place, an old Tartarian city generating huge amounts of electromagnetic energy. So we have this beautiful backdrop showing the old world power stations. It seems like a great place to leave the Stamford part of the video tour anyway, because we're going to head over to Berkeley House now, which is a mile, maybe 2 miles, just over the way there, and I think you're going to be really impressed with what we see. But what a beautiful place. Wow, guys, I hope you're as impressed with this as I am. This is unbelievable. Old world Tartarian power station right there. You can see The blue on the domes, they are copper, great conductors of electricity. We have weathercocks placed on top that are obviously modern day altercations to the old world Antiquitech that would have been there. Iron rods, just everything about this building. Huge chimney stacks as well that would have contained iron rods as well. Everything about this building is screaming electromagnetic energy. Really unbelievable structure. Such a shame that you can't get over. They've got this moat round and the gate's locked. I'm going to try and get a better look from all angles to show you this, because really it's an old world Tartarian building. So you can't get closer, guys, but if you can see just down there, you can see the lower level windows. Clearly going to have lower basement levels. Huge spire in the middle with a modern day weathercock, but that would have been a huge iron rod antenna back in the day. This building is just incredible, really it is. And as I was coming in, there was a map of the tree system, which would have been like a microchip, a board, a computer chip board, exactly the same layout and design. This would have been harnessing the electromagnetic energy from the town that we have just come from, which is just over here. When we go back the way, I'll show you the map so you can see exactly how it is. It's a circuit board that would have been channeling the energy that this would have been harnessing. You can see the blue copper domes right here. This one's really weathered, but there you can easily see the blue copper also there. And as I've said on many other videos, copper is a great conductor of electricity. Now if you would have placed an iron rod on top of the copper, you can harness the electromagnetic energy right down through to the building, and this circuit board that surrounds this whole area would have been letting the energy flow naturally as it goes through the ether. The ether is the empty space that is electrically charged. You have atoms, molecules, pluses and negatives. It's happening all around us. When you tap into this natural energy, you have the ability to harness free energy, and that is why this is suppressed. This is why we're not using it today. So this is the garden layout with the trees, and as I said, it resembles a circuit board. You can see all of the energy lines running, just mirroring a circuit board, and we find that a lot in these places. And the gardener is actually an interesting character I've just been looking into. Capability Brown, his name was, referred to as the greatest gardener of the United Kingdom. For his capabilities, obviously, but they attribute much of this work to these characters just to cover up the real purpose of it, because you know he'll be renowned as the greatest gardener, but there'll be no mention of this being laid out as a circuit board to do with energy, the ether. So I made some short videos whilst we was in the very small section of the house that we were allowed to go into, giving reference to Sir William Cecil as the builder of this house. Interesting character as well. Lots of points in there telling us that he pretty much had a big say in the history of this country, the rewriting of it. That was their own words. Also reference to the obelisk in the middle, old world architecture, old world Antiquitech. And Sir William Cecil was the first baron of this property, and his son was also the first baron of Salisbury, which has another cathedral near to Stonehenge, and his other son was the first baron of Exeter, which I believe has a cathedral as well. So these families, these prominent families, are just attributed with much of the old world architecture just to cover up the true purpose of what they were. It was unfortunate that we couldn't get to explore the house in greater detail, but we saw more than enough with the copper domes, the obelisk in the middle, antennas, everything there to tell us that this is an old world Tartarian power station. Even the gardens laid out in the circuit board that we see in a computer, we see this a lot. Lots of old cities are mirrored in exactly the same principles. So yeah, more than enough there to give us what we were looking for. So I hope you've enjoyed the wander around the village and the old manor house. Let me know in the comments what you thought of everything. As always, have a wonderful day, and I'll catch up with you all soon. Take care. Check this, guys, just on my way out from the manor grounds, and I stumble across a little memorial section for Princess Diana of Wales. Now this is same colour as copper, reference, domed roof, and that on top looks like a representation of the sun, which is the provider of the electromagnetic energy. I mean, is that just a coincidence or what? Just seems rather not strange, but you know. And we've also got the 4 points, like the solstice, you know. As we talk, on the solstice is when we get the alignments, we get the alignments of the electromagnetic energy. So I'd say that this is not a coincidence. This is here just as another reference point, really, just more evidence around. It's all around us when we look with them fresh eyes.